If you're an empath, there is something you need to understand right now. The very thing that nearly broke you is about to become the reason for your greatest comeback. There comes a point in every empath's life when the pain they have carried for years can no longer be ignored. For a long time, they convince themselves that if they just love harder, give more, forgive faster, or understand people better, everything will eventually work out. They become the person everyone depends on. They listen when nobody else listens. They stay when everyone else leaves. They sacrifice their own comfort to make sure others feel seen, heard, and valued. Yet despite all of this effort, many empaths eventually find themselves standing in the middle of emotional exhaustion, wondering why they always seem to be the ones left carrying the weight. The truth is that empaths often experience life differently than most people. They don't simply hear words, they feel the emotions behind them. They don't just witness pain, they absorb it. They don't walk away from difficult situations easily because their hearts naturally search for solutions, healing, and understanding. This gift allows them to connect deeply with others, but it can also become the source of tremendous suffering when they give that gift to people who never intended to value it. Many empaths spend years trapped in cycles of disappointment. They attract people who take advantage of their kindness. They offer support without receiving it in return. They forgive behavior that should never have been tolerated. They remain loyal long after others have stopped respecting them. Over time, these experiences begin to create wounds. The empath starts questioning themselves. They wonder if they are too sensitive, too emotional, too trusting, or simply not enough. What they don't realize is that these painful experiences are not signs of weakness. They are lessons that are quietly shaping them into someone stronger. Pain has a way of revealing truths that comfort never could. Every betrayal teaches an empath something about boundaries. Every disappointment teaches them something about expectations. Every broken promise teaches them something about character. While these lessons are difficult, they are also transformative. They force the empath to see reality more clearly. The people they once idealized begin to appear exactly as they are. The situations they once tolerated become impossible to ignore. The behaviors they once excused become obvious warning signs. This is where the real change begins. The empath slowly realizes that their purpose is not to save everyone. Their purpose is not to carry everyone else's burdens. Their purpose is not to sacrifice themselves endlessly for people who refuse to grow. For perhaps the first time in their life, they begin asking a powerful question. What about me? What about my peace? What about my happiness? What about my future? That question changes everything. The moment an empath starts valuing themselves as much as they value others, a transformation begins. They stop measuring their worth by how much they can give. They stop chasing approval from people who never appreciated them. They stop seeking validation from those who only noticed them when they needed something. Instead, they begin building a relationship with themselves. The pain that once felt like a curse starts becoming a source of wisdom. The heartbreak that once shattered their confidence starts strengthening their self-respect. The rejection that once made them feel unworthy starts teaching them that not every door is meant to remain open. Slowly, the empath discovers that every difficult chapter was preparing them for a new level of growth. What looked like destruction was actually preparation. What felt like failure was actually redirection. What seemed like an ending was actually the beginning of a completely different life. The empath begins to understand that their greatest strength was never their ability to endure pain. Their greatest strength is their ability to transform pain into purpose, wisdom, and power. And when that realization finally arrives, the person who once felt broken starts becoming someone they never imagined possible. One of the most remarkable truths about empaths is that they rarely stay down for long. No matter how deeply they have been hurt, betrayed, ignored, or underestimated, there is something within them that refuses to remain broken forever. While others may see only their sensitivity, what they often fail to recognize is the extraordinary resilience that lives beneath the surface. Empaths have an ability to recover, rebuild, and reinvent themselves in ways that surprise everyone around them. This is why so many of the greatest comebacks belong to people who once appeared completely defeated. The reason empaths rise after betrayal is because betrayal forces them to confront reality. Before the betrayal, they often see the best in people. They focus on potential rather than patterns. They believe that kindness can change someone's behavior and that patience can solve almost any problem. Because of this mindset, they frequently give opportunities to people who have not earned them. They continue investing energy into relationships that are draining them. They hold on to hope even when evidence suggests they should walk away. Then the betrayal happens. It may come from a friend they trusted, a partner they loved, a family member they supported, or someone they sacrificed for repeatedly. The betrayal cuts deeply because empaths invest emotionally. They don't offer pieces of themselves casually. When they care completely. When that trust is broken, the pain feels overwhelming. It can leave them questioning their judgment, their instincts, and even their identity. For a period of time, many empaths retreat inward. They become quieter. They pull back from people. They spend more time reflecting than speaking. To outsiders, it may look like they are falling apart. Some people assume the empath has been defeated. Some even believe they will never recover from what happened. What nobody realizes is that something powerful is occurring beneath the surface. The empath is processing lessons. Unlike people who simply move on without reflection, empaths analyze experiences deeply. They examine conversations, behaviors, choices, and outcomes. They look for patterns. They seek understanding. They want to know why things happened and what they can learn from the experience. While this process can be painful, it becomes the foundation of their future strength. Every betrayal teaches an empath to trust their intuition more. They begin noticing the warning signs they previously ignored. They remember the moments when something felt wrong, but they talked themselves out of listening. They recognize the difference between genuine kindness and manipulation. They become more aware of the gap between what people say and what people consistently do. As this awareness grows, the empath becomes stronger without becoming bitter. This distinction is important. Some people respond to betrayal by closing their hearts completely. They become cynical and distrustful. Empaths, however, often choose a different path. They learn how to protect themselves while still maintaining their ability to care. They develop boundaries without losing compassion. They become wiser without losing their humanity. This combination creates an incredibly powerful individual. They no longer waste energy trying to fix people who don't want to change. They no longer chase relationships that require them to abandon their self-respect. They no longer tolerate behavior that damages their peace of mind. Instead, they direct their energy toward growth, healing, and personal development. What makes the empath's comeback so extraordinary is that it is usually fueled by self-discovery. The same pain that once threatened to destroy them becomes the force that awakens them. The betrayal becomes the event that teaches them their true value. The rejection becomes the experience that pushes them toward greater confidence. The loss becomes the catalyst for transformation. As they continue evolving, people begin noticing the difference. The empath who once accepted crumbs now demands respect. The empath who once doubted themselves now trusts their instincts. The empath who once feared being alone now values their peace more than unhealthy connections. Their confidence no longer comes from external validation. It comes from surviving what they thought would break them and emerging stronger than before. That is why empaths rise after betrayal. The very experiences meant to weaken them often become the reason they discover their greatest strength. One of the greatest strengths an empath possesses is something that many people overlook because it cannot be seen on the surface. It is not physical strength, financial power, social status, or influence. It is emotional intelligence. This hidden ability allows empaths to navigate the world in a way that most people never fully understand. While others focus only on words, empaths instinctively recognize the emotions behind those words. While others react to appearances, empaths sense motivations, fears, insecurities, and intentions. This gift often feels natural to them because they have lived with it for so long, but its true value becomes clear only when they learn how to use it effectively. For many years, empaths often use their emotional intelligence primarily for the benefit of others. They notice when someone is struggling even when that person claims everything is fine. They recognize emotional pain hidden behind smiles. They understand when someone needs encouragement, support, or compassion. This ability makes them exceptional friends, partners, mentors, and listeners. People frequently feel comfortable opening up to them because empaths create an environment where others feel understood without judgment. However, there is a challenge that comes with this gift. Many empaths become so focused on understanding everyone else that they neglect understanding themselves. They spend countless hours analyzing other people's feelings while ignoring their own emotional needs. They become experts at helping others heal while postponing their own healing. As a result, they often end up emotionally exhausted, carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. The turning point occurs when the empath begins directing their emotional intelligence inward. Instead of asking why everyone else behaves the way they do, they start examining their own patterns. They begin noticing the relationships they repeatedly attract. They become aware of the situations that drain their energy. They identify the fears that influence their decisions. This self-awareness becomes one of the most powerful tools they will ever develop. Emotional intelligence allows an empath to recognize the difference between genuine connection and emotional dependency. It helps them understand when someone truly values them and when someone is merely using their kindness. It teaches them to distinguish between love and attachment, between loyalty and self-sacrifice, between helping and enabling. These distinctions may seem small, but they have a profound impact on the quality of the empath's life. As their emotional intelligence grows, they begin making different choices. They become more selective about who has access to their energy. They stop feeling responsible for fixing every problem they encounter. They understand that caring about someone does not require accepting harmful behavior. They realize that protecting their peace is not selfish, it is necessary. One of the most valuable aspects of emotional intelligence is the ability to remain calm during situations that once created chaos. An empath who has developed this skill no longer reacts impulsively to every emotional challenge. Instead, they observe. They listen. They assess the situation carefully. They understand that emotions provide information, but emotions do not always need to control decisions. This balance allows them to respond with wisdom rather than reacting from pain. People often underestimate how powerful this transformation can be. When an empath learns to combine compassion with discernment, they become incredibly difficult to manipulate. They can sense dishonesty more quickly. They can identify unhealthy dynamics sooner. They can recognize when someone's actions contradict their words. Because of this awareness, they avoid many of the situations that once caused them suffering. Their emotional intelligence also becomes a source of confidence. Instead of constantly seeking reassurance from others, they trust their observations. Instead of ignoring their intuition, they respect it. Instead of doubting themselves whenever challenges arise, they rely on the wisdom they have gained through experience. This creates a sense of inner stability that cannot easily be shaken by outside opinions. Over time, the empath begins to realize that emotional intelligence is not merely about understanding feelings. It is about understanding people, understanding patterns, understanding consequences, and understanding themselves. It becomes the foundation for healthier relationships, stronger boundaries, better decisions, and greater personal growth. What once seemed like a simple sensitivity reveals itself as a remarkable strength, one capable of transforming every area of their life and guiding them toward a future that is far more powerful than they ever imagined. There is a moment in the life of every empath that changes everything. It does not arrive with a dramatic announcement. It is not marked by a single event that everyone can see. Instead, it begins quietly within them. After years of seeking acceptance, approval, and understanding from others, something shifts. The empath finally reaches a point where they become tired of proving their worth to people who were never willing to recognize it. They become exhausted from explaining their intentions, defending their kindness, and trying to earn the respect that should have been given freely. This is the moment when an empath stops seeking approval, and it is often the beginning of their most powerful transformation. For much of their lives, many empaths unknowingly connect their self-worth to the opinions of others. Because they care deeply about relationships, they naturally want harmony, connection, and mutual understanding. When conflict arises, they often assume responsibility for fixing it. When someone is upset, they feel compelled to make things right. When they are misunderstood, they work tirelessly to explain themselves. Their desire to create peace can become so strong that they begin sacrificing their own needs in the process. Over time, this habit becomes emotionally draining. No matter how much effort they invest, there will always be people who fail to appreciate them. There will always be individuals who misunderstand their intentions, overlook their contributions, or take their kindness for granted. The empath may spend years trying to change these outcomes. They may become more accommodating, more patient, more forgiving, and more understanding. Yet despite all their efforts, some relationships remain one-sided and some people remain impossible to please. Eventually, a realization begins to emerge. The empath understands that no amount of explaining can make someone value them if that person has already decided not to. No amount of sacrifice can force respect from someone who does not respect themselves. No amount of kindness can convince another person to appreciate what they are unwilling to recognize. This realization can feel painful at first because it challenges beliefs that have existed for years. The empath may have spent much of their life believing that if they simply tried harder, loved deeper, or gave more, things would improve. Letting go of this belief requires courage. It means accepting that some battles are not meant to be fought and some people are not meant to be convinced. Once this understanding takes root, the empath begins to change. Instead of constantly looking outward for validation, they start looking inward. They stop measuring their worth through the reactions of others. They stop judging themselves based on whether everyone approves of them. They stop allowing criticism from unhealthy people to determine how they feel about themselves. For the first time, they begin giving themselves the same compassion they have always offered everyone else. This shift is incredibly powerful because approval seeking often keeps people trapped. It encourages them to stay in unhealthy situations longer than necessary. It causes them to ignore red flags. It leads them to prioritize other people's opinions over their own instincts. When the empath releases this need for approval, they regain control over their choices and their future. Their confidence begins growing in a new way. It is no longer dependent on compliments, recognition, or praise. It comes from self-awareness. It comes from understanding their values. It comes from knowing who they are even when others fail to see it. This type of confidence is far more stable because it cannot be taken away by criticism or rejection. People around them often notice the difference. The empath becomes less reactive to judgment. They become more comfortable setting boundaries. They stop over-explaining their decisions. They no longer feel obligated to justify every choice they make. Instead of seeking permission to live authentically, they simply begin doing it. The most remarkable part of this transformation is that the empath does not become selfish. They do not stop caring about people. They do not lose their compassion. What changes is that they finally understand the difference between kindness and self-abandonment. They realize that caring for others should never require neglecting themselves. They learn that their value exists independently of anyone's approval. And once they fully embrace that truth, they begin living with a level of freedom, confidence, and peace that many people spend their entire lives searching for. One of the most fascinating aspects of an empath's journey is that their greatest transformation often happens in complete silence. While the world is busy watching visible success, empaths are usually undergoing profound internal changes that nobody notices. People often expect transformation to look dramatic and immediate, but for an empath, it tends to be a slow and deeply personal process. Long before anyone sees the results, the empath is already rebuilding themselves from the inside out. For years, many empaths live according to patterns that were shaped by their desire to help, connect, and belong. They put others first. They ignore their own emotional needs. They tolerate situations that drain them because they believe things will eventually improve. They continue giving chances to people who repeatedly disappoint them. Although these habits come from a place of compassion, they often prevent the empath from fully recognizing their own potential. Then something changes. It may be a betrayal, a heartbreak, a period of loneliness, or simply a moment of clarity. Whatever the cause, the empath begins to see their life through a different lens. They start questioning old beliefs that no longer serve them. They examine relationships more honestly. They become aware of patterns they previously ignored. This awareness marks the beginning of a transformation that few people can see at first. During this stage, the empath often withdraws from unnecessary noise. They spend less time seeking approval and more time seeking understanding. They become more reflective. They pay closer attention to their thoughts, emotions, and habits. While others may interpret this as isolation, it is actually preparation. The empath is creating space for growth. As they continue evolving, they begin letting go of things that once felt impossible to release. Old resentments lose their grip. Toxic relationships lose their influence. Limiting beliefs lose their power. The empath starts recognizing that holding on to what hurts them only delays the life they are capable of creating. This realization allows them to move forward with greater confidence and purpose. One of the most surprising parts of this transformation is how much strength develops beneath the surface. The empath learns to trust themselves. They stop doubting every decision. They begin listening to their intuition instead of dismissing it. They gain a clearer understanding of what they deserve and what they are no longer willing to tolerate. These changes may not be obvious to outsiders, but they fundamentally alter the way the empath experiences life. Eventually, the results become visible. The empath carries themselves differently. Their energy changes. Their confidence becomes noticeable. They speak with greater certainty. They establish healthier boundaries. They no longer feel compelled to prove their value because they have already recognized it within themselves. People who once underestimated them often become surprised by the transformation. They wonder where this confidence came from. They question how someone who seemed so affected by past struggles became so strong. What they fail to realize is that the transformation did not happen overnight. It was built through countless moments of reflection, healing, learning, and growth. The empath who emerges from this process is not the same person who entered it. They are wiser because of their experiences. They are stronger because of their challenges. They are more confident because they have learned to trust themselves. Most importantly, they have discovered that their greatest transformation was never about becoming someone new. It was about uncovering the powerful person that had been hidden beneath fear, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion all along. There comes a moment in every empath's life when the comeback is no longer something waiting in the future. It is no longer a distant possibility or a hopeful dream. It becomes a reality that is unfolding in real time. After years of learning difficult lessons, healing old wounds, and rebuilding their sense of self, the empath reaches a point where they are finally ready to step into a completely new chapter. This is the beginning of the biggest comeback of their life. Many people assume a comeback starts when success appears. They think it begins when circumstances improve, opportunities arrive, or recognition is finally received. For an empath, however, the comeback begins much earlier. It starts the moment they decide that their past will no longer define their future. It starts when they stop identifying themselves by the pain they experienced and start identifying themselves by the strength they gained from surviving it. For a long time, the empath may have viewed their hardships as evidence that life was working against them. Every disappointment felt like proof that they were unappreciated. Every betrayal felt like confirmation that people could not be trusted. Every setback seemed to reinforce the idea that they would never receive the same care they so freely gave to others. Yet with time and reflection, they begin to see those experiences differently. They realize that every challenge forced them to grow. Every heartbreak taught them resilience. Every mistake taught them wisdom. Every obstacle revealed strengths they never knew they possessed. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing themselves as victims of circumstance, they begin seeing themselves as survivors, learners, and creators of their own future. They stop focusing on what was taken from them and start focusing on what they have gained. This mindset creates momentum, and momentum is one of the most powerful forces behind any comeback. As the empath moves forward, they begin making decisions from a place of confidence rather than fear. In the past, they may have stayed in unhealthy situations because they were afraid of loss, rejection, or uncertainty. Now, they understand that protecting their peace is more important than maintaining connections that constantly drain them. They no longer settle for relationships that require them to shrink themselves. They no longer chase opportunities that compromise their values. Instead, they choose environments that encourage growth, authenticity, and respect. This new version of the empath carries a different energy. They are still compassionate, but their compassion is guided by wisdom. They are still generous, but their generosity includes healthy boundaries. They are still understanding, but they no longer excuse behavior that damages their well-being. These changes allow them to move through life with greater clarity and purpose. One of the most powerful aspects of this comeback is that it is built on authenticity. The empath is no longer trying to become someone else in order to fit in or gain approval. They are no longer hiding parts of themselves to make others comfortable. They are embracing who they truly are, including their sensitivity, intuition, and emotional depth. What once felt like weaknesses now become sources of strength. As opportunities begin appearing, the empath is prepared to receive them. They have developed patience through hardship. They have developed confidence through self-discovery. They have developed resilience through adversity. Because of this preparation, they are able to recognize opportunities that they might have missed in the past. They trust themselves enough to pursue goals that once seemed impossible. The biggest comeback of an empath's life is not simply about achieving success or proving doubters wrong. It is about reclaiming their power, trusting their worth, and stepping into a future that reflects everything they have learned. It is the moment when all the pain, growth, lessons, and healing come together to create a stronger, wiser, and more confident version of themselves, someone fully prepared for the extraordinary life that lies ahead.